You're staring at a portfolio tracker at 11 p.m. on a Thursday, and the number says $512,000. You built that. Years of discipline, years of saying no, years of watching other people buy things you could have bought but didn't. And instead of feeling free, you feel something you didn't expect. You feel stuck. Like the thing that was supposed to accelerate is dragging. Like the next 500,000 is sitting behind a wall you can't see over. Everyone told you the first million was the hardest. Everyone told you to just get there. But nobody told you what would happen inside your chest around the halfway mark. That strange heaviness where the math still works, but the feeling doesn't. Something shifted around 500,000 that you can't quite name. And the person you were at 50,000 wouldn't believe you if you told them that having 10 times more money somehow feels slower. Hold that. Because by the end of this, you're going to understand why everything you're feeling is not only wrong, but almost perfectly inverted. The second million isn't just easier, it's a fundamentally different experience. And the reason has nothing to do with what you think. Here's what everyone gets right, but understands backwards. They say compound interest is powerful. They nod at the charts, they've seen the graphs that curve upward like a hockey stick. They understand it intellectually, the way someone understands that fire is hot without ever having been burned. But understanding compounding and feeling compounding are two completely different events. And the distance between those two things is exactly where most people lose the plot. Between 500,000 and 2 million, because compounding doesn't feel like acceleration, not at first. It feels like nothing. For years it feels like nothing. Your money grows, and you contribute, and the number goes up, and you tell yourself it's working. And technically it is, but the felt experience is grinding, slow, unremarkable, punishing in its patience. You're doing everything right, and the feedback is a whisper. Then something changes. Not in the math, in the weight. A dollar earned inside a $500,000 portfolio doesn't feel like a dollar earned inside a $50,000 portfolio. It doesn't feel like more. It feels like a different substance entirely. And that difference, that invisible shift in gravitational pull, is what makes the second million roughly 3 times faster than the first. But not for the reason anyone explains. Think of a river. Not a wide one, a narrow mountain river, the kind that starts as snowmelt trickling between rocks. At the source, you can step over it. The water moves, but it moves without force. It takes hours to fill a bucket. If you stood there watching it, you'd never believe this is the same thing that carves canyons. That trickle is your first $50,000. Slow, fragile, completely dependent on you showing up and feeding it. Every deposit you make is a handful of snow dropped into the stream. Without you, it stops. Around 100,000, the stream finds other streams, small ones, tributaries that didn't exist when you started. Your money begins generating enough return that the returns themselves start contributing. Not much. Not enough to notice unless you're paying close attention. But the river is wider now. It moves a little faster. You still have to feed it, but it's no longer entirely dependent on your effort. By 300,000, something has shifted that you can almost feel if you hold still long enough. The river has its own momentum. It pulls water from sources you didn't build. Market returns that once added $600 a year are now adding $15,000. The tributaries are feeding tributaries. The current is visible now. You can hear it. And at 500,000, the river crosses a threshold that changes its fundamental character. It's no longer a stream you're maintaining. It's a force you're directing. The water doesn't need you to show up every morning with a bucket anymore. It's pulling from underground aquifers, from rainfall across an entire watershed, from gravity itself. Your monthly contribution, The same $1,000 or $2,000 you've been adding for years is now a fraction of what the river generates on its own. You're still pouring in your bucket, but the river doesn't notice. It's already moving faster than you can feed it. This is the moment most people misunderstand. They think the acceleration is about having more money. It isn't. It's about a shift in ratio, a shift in who's doing the work. When you had $50,000 invested and you were contributing $2,000 a month, you were the engine. Your labor, your deposits, your discipline was responsible for the vast majority of the growth. The money was a passenger. Around $500,000, the roles reverse. And that reversal is so quiet, so undramatic, that most people don't even register it's happened. They just notice one day that the number moved more in a single quarter than it used to move in a year. And they feel something strange. Not excitement, disbelief. Like finding out the car you've been pushing uphill has had an engine the whole time, and someone finally turned the key. Why does this matter psychologically? Because the shift doesn't just change your portfolio, it changes you, and not in the way you'd expect. Around $500,000, a very specific kind of fear begins to dissolve. Not all at once, not dramatically. It melts slowly, like frost on a window you didn't realize was frozen. The fear I'm talking about isn't the fear of being broke. You left that behind a long time ago. It's something subtler, and in many ways more damaging. It's the fear of disruption. The fear that one bad quarter, one unexpected expense, one job loss, one medical bill will reset everything. That fear has been running in the background of your mind like software you forgot you installed. It affects how you negotiate. It affects what risks you take. It affects how you sleep. It makes you conservative when you should be patient, and anxious when you should be calm. And somewhere around 500,000, you start noticing that the background noise is quieter. Not gone, quieter. Because $500,000 doesn't just represent savings. It represents survivability. It represents a buffer so wide that most of life's worst financial punches can't reach you. Your car explodes? Annoying. Your furnace dies in January? Expensive, but irrelevant. You get laid off and it takes 6 months to find something? Uncomfortable, sure, but not catastrophic. Not even close. And when catastrophe stops being a realistic possibility, your entire nervous system recalibrates. You don't become reckless. You become something far more dangerous to the systems designed to keep you anxious. You become calm. And calm people make better decisions. That's not philosophy. That's just what happens when the part of your brain responsible for threat detection finally goes quiet long enough for the part responsible for strategic thinking to work without interruption. Here's what the second 500,000 actually looks like in practice, because this is where the feeling you already have gets confirmed by numbers you can't argue with. If you're investing $2,000 a month at a historical average return of around 8% annually, your first 500,000 takes you roughly 12 to 13 years. 12 years of discipline. 12 years of choosing the boring path while everyone around you was leasing German cars and financing kitchen renovations. 12 years of compounding that mostly felt like saving because the returns were small relative to your contributions. Your second 500,000, going from 500 to $1 million, takes about 5 to 6 years. Not 12, not 10, 5 to 6. Same contribution, same return rate, same you, half the time. And it's not because you started earning more or found a better fund or got lucky with a single stock. It's because $500,000 generating 8% annually is producing $40,000 a year on its own. That's more than $3,000 a month in returns, nearly double your monthly contribution, created by money you already have doing nothing but sitting there. Your deposits haven't changed, your effort hasn't changed, but the river doesn't care about your effort anymore. It has its own current. By the time you're crossing from 1 million to 1.5, the timeline compresses again, roughly 3.5 years. Your portfolio is now generating $80,000 a year in returns. Your $2,000 monthly contribution is almost a rounding error in the growth equation. You're still adding it because the habit is so deep it's part of your identity now. But the machine doesn't need you. It runs on its own fuel. And reaching 2 million from 1.5 takes less than 3 years. Same person, same salary, same contribution. The math just bends. The second million isn't 3 times easier because you found a shortcut. It's 3 times easier because the first million is doing the work for you. And it never takes a day off, never negotiates for a raise, never calls in sick, never questions whether this is all worth it. It just compounds, silently, relentlessly, without opinion or hesitation. And here's where something shifts inside you that has nothing to do with money anymore. It has to do with power. Not the kind people talk about in boardrooms, the kind that lives in your body, in your posture during a negotiation. In the 3-second pause before you answer a question you don't like. In the way you stop explaining yourself to people who don't control your future. When your money works harder than you do, you stop performing competence and start embodying it. You say less in meetings, but what you say lands differently because people can feel that you're not speaking from need. You're speaking from position. You walk into salary negotiations and you don't bluff because you're not bluffing. The number they offer either works for you or it doesn't, and either outcome is fine. Not pretend fine, actually fine. You stop chasing opportunities and start filtering them. The shift is almost invisible from the outside, but internally, it's seismic. You're no longer trying to build a life. You're editing one. Removing things that don't fit, keeping things that do. And doing it all from a position so stable that urgency itself starts to feel like a relic from someone else's life. Patience stops being a strategy you practice. It becomes your default setting. And patient people with capital are the most dangerous players in any market because they can wait longer than almost anyone else. They can say no to a good deal because they know a better one is coming. They can hold through a downturn without selling because they don't need the money this quarter or next quarter or the quarter after that. They have the one thing that most investors trade away without realizing it: time. And time in a compounding system isn't just valuable, it's everything. But there's a place right here, right at this threshold between 500,000 and the first million, where nearly everyone makes the same mistake. And the mistake is so seductive, so well disguised as progress, that by the time you recognize it, the damage is already years deep. The mistake is lifestyle acceleration timed to portfolio milestones. It works like this. You hit a number that feels significant. 500,000. You've been grinding. You've been disciplined. You've been watching other people enjoy their money while you fed the river. And something inside you whispers that you've earned a reward. Not a small one, a structural one. A bigger house, a nicer car, a private school for the kids, a monthly expense that didn't exist before. And it makes sense. It feels earned. It is earned. But here's what that whisper never mentions. Every dollar you move from the compounding engine into your lifestyle doesn't just cost $1. It costs every dollar that dollar would have generated for the rest of your life. Moving $50,000 from investments into a down payment on a nicer house doesn't cost you $50,000. At 8% over 20 years, it costs you $233,000. You didn't spend $50. You spent $233. You just won't feel the loss for 2 decades. And this is where the cruelty lives. The compounding that makes the second million 3 times easier is the exact same compounding that makes lifestyle inflation 3 times more expensive than it appears. The force that accelerates your wealth punishes your spending with equal mathematical violence. Every upgrade you make at this stage doesn't just slow the river, it redirects it. It takes water that was building force towards something extraordinary and pours it into a swimming pool that sits in your backyard looking pretty and doing absolutely nothing. The people who get from 500 to 2 million in 7 or 8 years are not the ones who earn the most. They're the ones who didn't touch the machine. They let it run. They watched it work. They resisted the urge to celebrate the milestone by dismantling the very engine that created it. They understood that between 500,000 and 2 million, the single most important financial skill isn't earning or investing or even saving. It's the ability to leave it alone. The number in your portfolio tracker at 11 p.m. on a Thursday says 512,000. You built that. And the heaviness you feel isn't failure. It isn't stagnation. It's the weight of a river about to change character. The math that felt like grinding for 12 years is about to feel like gravity. Not because you'll work harder, not because you'll find a secret, because $500,000 doesn't need your permission to compound. It doesn't need your attention or your anxiety or your midnight portfolio checks. It needs one thing from you, and only one thing. It needs you to not interrupt it. The second million is already being built, right now, while you sleep, while you worry, while you wonder if something is wrong. Nothing is wrong. Everything is working exactly the way the math said it would. You just couldn't feel it until now. And that quiet shift, that barely perceptible moment where the current takes over and your effort stops being the story, that's not the end of the hard part. That's the end of pushing. Everything after this is just learning to stop steering the river and letting it carry you where it was always going to go.